All right, and let's get started with a little bit of code reading. Trey, could you start us off? Could you do lines 9 through 11?
Did you say Trey?
Yes, please.
Okay. And 9 through 11.
Correct.
On line 9, we have the opening tag for a list or the LI element. On line number 10, we have the opening tag for the A element with the I just looked at this, I'm sorry. Or the opening tag for the anchor element with an href attribute. Uh, with the link to the web, the href with the text, and then the closing tag to the absolute element.
So the A element and the anchor element.
I'm sorry, the anchor element. Sorry.
And then 11.
On line 11, we have the closing tag of the li element.
Perfect. Thank you, Trey. Rukaya, 12 through 14.
On line 12, we have an opening tag for the li element. On line 13, we have an opening tag for the anchor element with the href attribute with a value of an absolute URL, followed by some text, followed by the closing tag for the anchor element. On line 14, we have the closing tag for the li element.
Perfect. Thank you. Caroline, 15 through 17.
Okay, on line 15, there's an opening tag for the li element. On line 16, there's an opening tag for the anchor element with the ref attribute. And then some followed by text content and a closing anchor tag. And then on line 17, there's a closing li element tag.
Perfect. Line 18, there's an opening tag for the li element. Line 19, there's an opening tag for an anchor element with an href attribute being assigned a string, some text content, and then a closing tag for the anchor element. On line 20, there's a closing tag for the li element. And then Trey finished this one off, 21 through 23.
On line 21, we have the opening tag for an li element. On line 22, we have the opening tag for the anchor element with an href attribute with absolute link with some text, followed by the closing tag for the anchor element. And on line 23, we have the closing tag for the li element.
Perfect. Thank you. Check out our quiz questions. Rukaya, what HTML tag is used when I want to link to another website?
The anchor tag.
Yeah, the anchor tag or the A element, but yep, that anchor tag. So whenever I just want to link to any other website, then I can use that anchor tag. Caroline, what is an absolute URL?
So that is a URL that we are referencing that's outside of our local website,
Yeah.
a different website.
You still technically could reference the one on your website. It just absolute includes the domain and the protocol. So with the HTTPS, how it has like that full destination of where it lives on the web, that's an absolute URL. So whenever you're putting in the whole URL of where that resource lives, that would be an absolute URL. Whereas in Trey, what about a relative URL? What is a relative URL?
So on a relative URL, it's the it only specifies the path to the linked resource relative to the current page.
Exactly. So it specifies the path relative to the current document. So our relative file system. We'll have a whole another exercise. I think it's the next exercise where you'll dive much more into the difference between the two. And you'll see them in action. Awesome. I'll talk about two small things, but before I do, did anyone else have any questions? Caroline?
Well, I was wondering about I will just ask maybe on the next exercise.
Oh, you can ask them.
Well, no, I was just wondering about how you mentioned that it's the whole link, the HTTPS, but we can also reference our own page, so I'm wondering if we have different pages on our website,
Mhm.
then we would be referencing them using the relative URL.
You would still want to use relative, but like, let's say for instance, like this code was on LearningFuze's website. There's nothing that's stopping me from doing learningfuse.com. And it would still work.
Slash the file folder. No.
Oh, I can do that. I'm just saying that
Oh,
even though I am on LearningFuse, I do not necessarily need to use a relative URL. I can still link using an absolute URL
oh, I
because
see.
it exists at that actual web location. In theory, I shouldn't. I should use relative URLs because then it'll be relative to my current stuff. But you still can. I'm just saying the only portion that makes an absolute URL an absolute is that it includes the whole protocol. So it's saying specifically where this destination lives on the web. Whereas then if I tried to load in a local image, you know, like I tried to go to my assets folder, for instance. Well, this assets folder is only relative to my current file system. So this is a relative URL. It doesn't exist somewhere on the web with the HTTPS.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Trey.
Is the absolute URL, is that better for SEO purposes? Does it
I
even
don't-
matter?
I don't think it matters, if, as far as I'm aware, well, that's not fully true. The type of, link that you use, I don't think necessarily impacts SEO, but kind of, because a big way of how you can get SEO is the amount of websites that link to you. So if you've ever like gone to a company's website and you see like they say like our partners, and then it's all links to like all other companies that they work with. So you may go to like a company's website and they're like, oh, we work with Apple, we work with Intel or whatever, and they'll like link to the websites. Well, a big way of how you can gain SEO is the more sites that reference your site. It means Google indexes it more. So if I had 20 people that were pointing to my website, well, that means that there's 19 other people besides me that also have that reference. So then Google is gonna rank me higher than someone that only has like one person pointing to it. So links themselves, the fact that it's relative or absolute doesn't necessarily impact SEO, but links can impact SEO because the more people that are linking to your website means Google is indexing your website more, which means it will then impact your SEO by ranking it higher.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Rukaya, I'm not sure if that answered your question as well.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good. Then the only other two things I'll talk about with this one. Open this up, I think I already did, sweet. So one thing is by default right now, see, I'll click on a link, so I'll click on Google. Oh, why did that tell me that? Oh,
Because
I
you told
update,
me.
oh, because I was showing the example. I was like, oh, that was strange, there we go. I was like, why is that going to LearningFuze? Okay, so now I click on Google. Oh my gosh, I saved it, right? Oh, I didn't save my file. There we go. Whatever, we're going to Yahoo. I click on Yahoo, we go to Yahoo, it sends me there. But we'll notice, right, I lost the page that I was on. Obviously, I can get back with the back arrow, but sometimes we don't really want to lose the user. I may want them to like open another resource, but I still want to keep them on my page. I don't want to lose them from my page. So oftentimes what you'll do is you'll open links in a new tab. So that way you keep the user on your page, but then you also allow them to open the resource in another one. So if you go back to your anchor tag, there's another attribute called the target attribute. And if you do target underscore blank, what this is going to tell HTML is it's going to tell it to open it in a new tab. So now you can see as soon as I click on Yahoo, it opened Yahoo in a brand new tab. And I still have my old tab with all my other code right here. So it kind of just depends on what you're doing. But it's very common that if you were going to be linking to an external resource, so someone else's website, someone else's absolute URL, you'll usually open it in a new tab. So that way it'll open it up in a new tab. You keep the user on your web page. If you're sending someone between your website You know, so like on LearningFuze, you know, we have our resources, all these different pages or about us or whatnot. Then you wouldn't obviously want it to open in a new tab. You would want it to be kind of fluid and you would use the same tab and you would kind of switch between. It's mainly just if you're sending them to some sort of other resource. Yeah.
So in this situation, as you just showed us, then we would use the relative path and we would create folders to
Yes.
keep our code organized for that specific website. And then in those, for example, yeah, we would just connect it with the relative.
Yeah, so the URL's changed, so you can see I'm on the tuition page, so you can see it's /tuition.
Uh-huh.
If I go to the home page, you can see it's just the home page. So then I have an anchor tag, which is sending me to /tuition, which is then now loading in that page.
Folder, and it's in the folder
Mhm.
with all the images that belong to that page and everything.
All the other content, yep.
Okay.
One other thing that you can do with anchor links is, so we talked about relative URLs, we talked about absolute URLs. You can also use these as, I think they're referred to as hyperlinks. But you can send, if you have like IDs on your page. So if you ever go on a website, like I have my website right here, I have these tabs, right? As soon as I click on this tab, you see how it sends me to that section of the page. I click on about and it sends me to that section of the page. So if I gave an element like an ID of about, so let's say this div has an ID of about, and now for my href, I did hashtag about, I can now send someone to that ID. So now as soon as I click on Google, it's then gonna go find an element with that ID of about, and then it's gonna bring it in a vision. So that's what's happening right here. So if we inspect this page right here, you can see my HTML, my anchor tag /skills, /about, /projects. So now, as soon as I click on projects, let me inspect this. Well, now you can see these projects section, find it somewhere. Div ID projects. You can see this element has an ID of projects. So when I clicked on this anchor tag, it then sent me to where this ID actually was. So you can use links in various different ways. You can send them to another website. You could send them to another website or another resource within your page. And you could also use them with IDs to send them between sections on the current page. Any questions about that?
I do, but I'll ask later maybe, because I don't know how to formulate it, I just realized we can do that. How come that's possible? Because the div,
That's just how they built it. It's just when you do a hashtag, your hashtags are referencing IDs. So it's just the people that built HTML and the browsers, they just added that functionality. So now, as soon as I ever click a link and that link starts with a hashtag, and that means that I'm looking for some sort of an ID.
oh,
Mhm,
that's amazing.
mhm. Any other questions about links? All right, I'll stop our share, stop the